So please let me know in case there are any glitches. Is the screen visible? Am
Yeah,
I
it's
audible?
visible. It's visible.
Great, great. Thank you so much. So, a formal introduction of myself. My name is Divya. A lot of people have always known me as Kashish. So, I have an overall experience of 19 years now. And recently, with the guidance and mentorship of Veer, I have cleared SPHRI. As we proudly say, it is one of the toughest global HR certifications. So thanks a lot to Veer. And it's I've been a part of core HRIR community since I think all of us started. But of late, I have been very inactive in the community. But yeah, happy to be back again today. So overall, I've worked with mostly IT and ITES organizations, including some of the organizations which were a part of the Great Places to Work Institute Awards for almost 11 years in a row. And currently, I'm associated with a global overseas edtech firm. I head the global HR needs or global HR functions of the organization. Overall, education-wise, as usual, I'm an MBA in HR, and I've done a couple of certifications in analytics and then, of course, SPHRI. I do believe that life is a constant learning, um, is a platform where we have to constantly learn and evolve. And I continue to learn and evolve, and that's has entirely been the initiative of Veer, wherein he formed the core HRIR community, and that's where all the inspiration comes from. So today we are going to cover some of the topics that are listed below on the screen. So who we are and what's our mission, what exactly is Core HRIR Group, what are the key fundamentals of networking and learning that we follow, and what has been our journey so far, and how do we engage through social media, and of course, what's the plan that we have for future, and how can individuals or HR professionals join our thriving community, and how can you be in touch with us? So we started a journey in 2017 where we formed some of the basic fundamentals on which we thought we could function and make the HR community very enriched in terms of a nonprofit uh, thought process and leadership and guidance and mentorship kind of a program. So our mission is essentially to forge a credible global HR network for understanding, appreciating, and sharing innovative resource practices. Now we are more than 12,000 plus members from Fortune 500 companies worldwide. And we have our, mini core HRIR groups in Asia Pacific region, and almost all over India, and through which we are further delving deep into how we are able to leverage networking and how we are able to collaborate and share knowledge and brainstorm and ensure that as a community we continuously learn and evolve. So I think most of the information that you see on this slide I've already covered in the previous one. But essentially, our vision is to be the premier global HR network, which fundamentally believes in sharing, appreciating, and understanding the evolving dynamics of HR, from HRIS to how artificial intelligence has actually started affecting the HR function overall. And we have very strong leaders who are guiding the group as well as backing up the mission. So yes, we have um, people who have been with us for ever since we started, and talking about the experience range from 3 years to almost 33 to 35 years of experience. So that's actually a lot of experience overall. Some of the core areas that we collectively take care of. Veer Bharat, he's being humble here, but he's one of the founders of Core HRIR, and he's leads networking. Bhanu is taking care of all the digital needs of Core HRIR, and Praveen is ensuring that the engagement stays up to date. We have one of our mentors in the form of Swarna Sudha, who is currently the lead for strategy. And we have Kamal Patania, who is leading the APAC region for us. And Anu's helping us with ensuring the events are taken care of in complete perspective. And Kirti is helping us further with networking, and Jyoti takes care of the rewards sections. And I off and on do pitch in with the lead engagement. So overall, the focus has been networking and learning. And our philosophy revolves around the synergy of networking mixed with the power of knowledge sharing. So we've had various initiatives starting from Chai Buddies, Chai Buddy series, wherein it was like a mini HR conclave that we conducted. And we have been doing masterclass as well as webinar sessions also, focusing on AI, HR analytics, and many more interesting topics. So some of the main initiatives are showing on the screen right now. We have Learning Weekend, the Chai Buddy series, the HR Co-Connect, Core HRIR Shining Award, wherein we have been recognizing budding HR professionals who have contributed, who've made a tremendous contribution not only to the organization, but overall to the HR function in totality. And HR Masterclass is the one that today we are conducting. It's one of the series where we focus on a particular topic and we try and engage and get guidance from the HR stalwarts who are experts in that field. And of course, Core Mega HR Conclave, which is one of its kind, held at least once a year, and it's on a much bigger level than the Chai Buddy series that we have. And we are a proud partner of HRCI, and we have been conducting the learning sessions for HRCI, and some of our initiatives also contribute to the credits that one can earn for HRCI recertification. And not to forget the Core HRIR Candid Conversation series, where it's more like an exchange of views and or more like a interview session. And of course, Core HRIR Career Center is where we help our HR professionals or HR colleagues to find good opportunities, and at the same time help organizations with finding the right talent to carry their HR department forward. And all this is fully, I would say, volunteer work. There are no charges that are involved as such. So yeah, that's a tremendous work that Core HRIR has been able to accomplish till now. On the screen in front of you are some of the companies, the top companies in the world where our members are from: Goodyear, Google, eBay, HP, Hitachi, Nintendo, Pfizer, Nokia, Yahoo, Sony, Sharp, Siemens, Giorgio Armani, etc., etc. I mean, it's a huge list to cover, but then I was able to just mention some of those. Just a glimpse of the various sessions that we have done, a snapshot of what we could capture as the memories. So it was truly an exhilarating experience to be a part of to be a part of some of these sessions. Okay, so this particular screen shows the major think tanks, some of the major contributors to the HR community in terms of guidance, in terms of mentorship, in terms of the thought series or the the thought the league of thoughts that we were able to incorporate in Core HRIR. Some of the major stalwarts of the HR function. So thank you so much for paying attention so well during this presentation. And yeah, so this particular screen really shows the insights into Shining HRIR Award, Shining HR Award series, wherein we have been able to humbly recognize some of the major contributors or some of the major, some of the major HR stalwarts who have made a difference to the HR community. So a snapshot from the HR conclaves that we've conducted so far, and a snapshot from the HR Masterclass series that we have done. Again, core learning weekend, which we conducted with some of the leaders like Bimal Rath and Harini Srinivasan and Jitendra Panihar and so on and so forth. So we have been able to focus not just on the Indian leaders, but the global leaders as well, and that has been a feather in our cap. As I mentioned, we are an approved provider of HRCI certification. We are a facilitator, and we have been able to successfully make difference to some of the leading HR professionals who are now HRCI certified, and that includes myself. So thanks a lot, Veer, and thanks a lot, Core HRIR. And some of the top reasons why you can, so of course, some of the major reasons have already been covered previously, but then these are some of the top reasons where why we certainly believe that joining our community will certainly be beneficial for you as well as your career. So networking, you'll be able to get in touch with almost 12,000 professionals around the globe. So we're not talking just the domestic part of the HR community, we're talking about global communities. You certainly would be able to see a growth where you'll be able to reach out to people for mentorship, for guidance, for maybe looking out for better opportunities, for learning, for your own career development, for adding skills to your portfolio. And of course, we come up with innovative concepts. So some of the trending concepts is what we always strive to cover, and that I'm sure would be certainly beneficial for knowledge enhancement during your career path. So join us and be a part of the community that's ever evolving, ever growing, and ever learning. This is a snapshot of some of the global certifications from HRCI that HRCI offers. It's APHRI, PHRI, SPHRI, and GPHR. You may want to log on to the website, which is www.hrci.org for more details, and I'm sure you'll be able to understand what credentials or what augmentation it can do to you in your career. So we're there on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. So follow us follow Core HRIR for the latest updates and insights on any of these platforms. Yeah, so that'll be all. Of course, for today's masterclass, I would now like to introduce and put the spotlight on our today's learning mentor and HR stalwart, Annie Williams. Praveen, can you please, I'll stop sharing my screen, and can you please welcome Miss Annie Williams? Hello, ma'am. Very good morning and a warm welcome from the entire HR community, especially from Core HRIR. And we're really proud and humbled at the same time to have you here. And for the benefit of all the people who have joined us, all the HR professionals who have joined us, I would like to give a brief introduction about Ms. Williams. She's been a seasoned HR professional, a coach, and a mentor, and she's dedicated to completely igniting success stories for individuals as well as organizations. So with a humongous experience of 3 decades, of navigating leadership and empowerment, she offers an opportunity for transformative HR practices that provide resilience, leadership, excellence, and individual personal growth. Her journey from humble beginnings to the CXO role, she has wonderfully shaped her approach to a personal and professional growth. and she's equipped with credentials from IMT Ghaziabad, XLRI, Wharton, and IIM Bombay in her last corporate assignment. She played a pivotal role in the growth of a housing finance company. Her legacy over 17 years with a large financial services company includes achievements such as leading strategic initiatives on some of the most coveted functions in the HR, like diversity and inclusion, HR digital transformation, vision, mission, values campaign, organization development, and succession planning. So these are the core areas within the HR function which actually shape up any big organization's brand value on in the global platform. And she has had a tremendous and a well-rounded and success-driven experience in all these areas that we have mentioned. So her leadership style is characterized by a dynamic blend of strategic foresight, adaptability, and a keen understanding of the human element within organizations. So we're really humbled and we're really proud to have her as a part of our HR Masterclass series, and we are eternally thankful to her, and we talk with a lot of gratitude at the moment that she's agreed to share her knowledge, her experience and expertise, and we'll be so lucky to get some enrichment from her experience on this journey. Thank you so much, ma'am. Welcome formally.
Thank you so much, Divya. The benefit is to be, and I'm grateful for you, Praveen, and the entire core HRIR team to have me here. And the pleasure is entirely mine. I think when we were discussing around what is it that we would like to cover, and I said risk management is one of the topics, I wasn't really sure of how interesting it would be for people. But I must say I'm pleasantly surprised at the number of people who registered, at the participant here, and the overall quality of some of the questions that came up. And that puts immense pressure on me to make this session as interactive, as engaging. And of course, I will endeavor to hope to be able to send back to you, send you back with some of these learning and strategies that you can go back and apply to your core responsibilities. I'll share my screen. Just give me a moment and confirm if this is visible.
It's visible.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when I moved into heading HR governance back in 2014, that was because one of the regions that I handled had the least audit observations, had the least compliance and process violations. And I thought, this is great. I mean, I'm already doing so well. Leading the function will be a cakewalk. When I came into lead HR governance and when I started to look at risk management, I think it changed my entire perspective. It's a depth of knowledge, it's a depth of information, and you can never ever at any point of time say that you've understood it as a whole. And therefore, like I said, I'm going to endeavor to place with you some of what I have learned through my journey of managing HR governance. And I will definitely try to address some of the questions that you've raised as part of the process earlier. But before we get there, let's do a little warm up. We are all on this journey, trekking on to the peaks of understanding risk management, and we are at base camp. If you can log in into menti.com or scan this QR code, use the code, the user code up there, 52182591. And when you log in, you will have this question already visible on your screen. What you need to do is, in a sentence, write back what you understand with risk management. And if one of you or anybody can confirm if this is working. Okay, it seems to be working. Business continuity, wonderful. Okay, we have 46 people, I think, on call today. Let's see more responses. It's okay. There's a right answer here. Overcoming vulnerability, evaluating, mitigating risk, wonderful. Estimating risk and taking proactive steps. Correct. Yeah. Okay. Proactively reacting to a problem. I guess we'll wait for one more response and then avoiding pitfalls. Okay. It's a process of identifying, assessing. Yes, fantastic. Now somebody is going to take away the entire essence of my presentation here. Treating loss exposure. Okay, wonderful. This is nice. Let's go to the second question. You are now pick words that you relate to when you say what are organizational risks, types of organizational risks. Any word that resonates with you when you say type of risk? Are we talking of risk for the organization as a whole? Legal and compliance, financial, branding, wonderful, ethical behavior, capabilities, people retention, or attrition, compliance, IR, ROI. Okay, interesting. That value, learning, uncertainty, business failures. Interesting. Statutory compliances, strategic risks. Fantastic. So this makes it quite we're getting some more responses. Great. So what we're saying, largely financial, a lot of people resonated with financial and branding. But we've got various other risks. We're talking of legal, strategic, behavior, people risk. Now let's look at what is the definition of this. And what you've responded for both of these questions are extremely relevant and extremely uh, aligned with what I'm going to be talking of in the subsequent slides. But before we get there, let's quickly look at what we will cover today. We are going to look at what is the definition of risk management and what is risk management when it comes to the function of HR. We will look at what are some of the types of risk in the HR function with respect to processes. There is a market data that I will provide a link to you at the end of this session. While I researched in terms of the material that was available, study material that was available, I came across this article and I think it's very nicely put together. It's an article by WTW in the year 2016. So we'll look at some snippets of this research. I will try and leave you with some of these strategies that you can go back and apply. Tools that you could look to apply to monitor your risks and look at how you can control them. Briefly talk about some of the challenges you will face, and then yes, at the end we will try and practice to see if we are able to go and apply some of the learnings in today's session. So here's a definition of risk management, and yes, somebody did write this up when they presented it. The whole concept is to be able to have a systematic process through which you continuously identify, assess, prioritize, and mitigate risk, with the impact being that it has a potential impact and the organization continues to perform. It cannot be a one-time activity, okay? Because you will, as we move ahead, you will learn that risks can keep coming up from internal and external factors. And therefore, it is a continuous journey. But what makes this effective is if you are able to put a good systematic process that has the ability to not just identify, but also build the controls in the process itself, right? We spoke about some of the type of risks. Now, while you did say a lot of comments came in, if you were to really categorize all of this, they will fall into broadly these 5 parameters. And I'm sure you understand these. Financial is the risk of loss of funds or loss of income or an impact on the P&L. Reputational is about how the organization is perceived. Now, when I say reputational, it could also be a financial risk and a reputational risk. For example, a employee who is mis-selling a product can lead to a financial risk and will definitely lead to a reputational risk and may also lead to legal risk with the customer filing complaints. Right? I think there was one of this question where somebody asked you, so how can an employee impact the risk for the business? This is like the simplest way in which I can can help you understand that as a first step, if you're communicating the wrong process, if you're communicating the wrong policy, if you're communicating incorrect benefits of your product, you could end up having a significant impact on these top 3 risks. Legal risk could be customer-led, legal risk could be employee-led also. When you talk of strategy and market risk, it could be when when you start to launch a new product or you want to get into a new market. If your product launch or your market launch does not have a predefined set of guidelines, which says that, okay, what are some of the strategic steps you need to take before you get into that new market or into that new product, you are leaving yourself open for this risk. For example, things like looking at whether you have the customer available, whether you have opportunity to get a share of the market available, whether you have a need of that product in itself. If you aren't assessing these set of questions before you roll out, you will run the risk of your product or your strategy not being successful. Operational risk will be everything else, which is your ability to follow your BAU process on a day-to-day basis. It could mean operations in terms of your processes. It could mean operations in terms of your HR functions. It could mean operations in terms of your technology functions, right? What does risk management mean in the HR function? Now, while the overall framework continues to be the same, you are going to be looking at a systematic process that mitigates this from a long-term perspective. HR risk management focuses largely on those threats and uncertainties that have a direct impact on employees, labor relations, culture, compliances, and your overall other aspects, whether it is the ability to attract talent, ability to retain talent, ability to develop talent. Like I said before, this can arise from both internal and external factors. In terms of an internal, of course, you're talking of your inadequate policies. Can somebody quickly think of something which is an external factor, a very recent element? A recent external factor that had an impact. Okay, moonlighting is one of it, yes. But something which was a major impact, a very recent major impact. Absolutely, COVID. Now, COVID, it did not only have an impact on the way a business operated, but it had a significant impact on how HR functioned. And I think if there has been any movement around the whole concept of risk management in HR, I think it's largely moved from this episode of COVID, right? And if the way I look at it, if WTW would have done this 2016 assessment now, I'm sure their results would be a complete 360-degree change. Let's talk about what are the type of risks in the HR function. Okay. The first one, of course, is talent risk. And I think a lot of you have in your questions asked about what do we do about the fact that the candidates don't turn up after the accepted offer? What do we do about the dropouts that we have or the offer declines? That, of course, is a risk when you look at talent acquisition. However, it is also easily mitigated by you creating a funnel. So if you were to go back and look at what is your hiring trends for certain roles, you would be able to predict, easily as to what should be your sourcing volume to eventually get a certain hiring number. And I think that's again the question that somebody asked: Can we predict the risks? So yeah. So the conversion is something that you definitely can predict. But what are the other significant talent risks? Um, I'm sure all of you in your organizations have job descriptions, but I do not know how many of these organizations are periodically looking at those job descriptions. In many of the organizations, they are dated. They are dated such that the job descriptions don't really relate to what the person does on the ground today. And that's where the dissonance comes in. And that's the risk that you run to have people, you're hiring people for a specific job based on a job description, but the requirement of the job is completely different. Your other risks are, especially now when we're getting more and more aware of DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. Uh, if your policy says that you're fair and you're non-biased, but on the ground, somebody is only hiring people within a certain community or is not hiring people with diverse backgrounds, that's the risk that you are running into. And your system needs to be able to identify such anomalies because otherwise, what your practice and your policy don't talk to each other. If you move to employee relations risk, now employee relations in COVID, like you said, played a huge amount of role. But here again, I'm not talking of just your ability to communicate to the employee. How effective is your policy to be able to get bottoms up feedback? A lot of organizations talk of whistleblower policy. Pretty much every organization has a whistleblower policy. But how often do you communicate that policy on the ground? How many of your employees are aware where they are required or where they can go back and report their grievance? Where do they, who do they contact if they have a problem? Which means that your employee relations does not need to be only top down. It also has to factor the bottoms up process. And when you have this process, let's say you've established this process, how often are you looking at the effectiveness of this? A lot of organizations create this grievance cell, but then they resist to respond to these questions. You've had employees who say, I've written, but I've not got a response. I wrote, but I didn't get a feedback. Is that being effective or not? Look at employee development, and this is closely related to talent risk, right? If you're not hiring the right person, okay, and then you're not even developing the individual, there is again going to be dissonance. It's going to impact your attrition risk, right? If you're going to look at not creating the bench by developing people, you are going to eventually at some point of time continue to have a talent risk. You're going to, a lot of you talk about this hire, fire. That's all that we're doing. People in the generalist role or people in the recruitment functions often talk about a lot of burnout because they're continuously hiring for certain positions. But how many have really stepped back and said that now that I've hired the right person, do we have the mechanisms to be able to continue to help them develop their skills for now and for the future? Do you have a leadership development plan? Do you have a succession plan? If you do have those, you will find that your attrition risk tends to get lower. Your attrition risk can also be impacted based on, so we say, right, people leave managers, people don't leave organizations. How are you developing leaders? How often are you going back and looking at those signals that you get to know that there is friction? Somebody said, how do you deal with conflict? You deal with conflict later, but are you even aware that there is a conflict? So does your system allow you a way, and it's again relates to employee relations, does your system allow you, the employee, the ability to come back and talk openly about his manager without the fear of repercussions? Talk about performance management. How effective are your performance appraisals policies? When are goals being defined? Are they defined at the beginning of the appraisal year? Or do you actually end up putting your goals and your feedback both together for the full year? How do you give feedback? Do you have mechanisms where a manager can put documented feedback for the employees as and when the event arises? Do you have systems where the manager can recognize contributions and achievements at that very moment. So do you have a method of spot recognition? In all of this, is your performance management process transparent? Will an employee know at the end of the year what his or her rating is, and will they be able to resonate with that? Now, there are a lot of technologies that are available through which you can look at performance diaries, and these feedbacks can be given consistently. But do you have those technologies in place, or are you even looking at developing those? Data security and privacy risk. This again is, as HR, we control a lot of confidential employee data. But this is not only limited to employee data. We also talk of data confidentiality for everything that we handle. For example, when I used to travel to my branches, I would often find that attested customer KYCs were on the tables. Now that's a problem. That's a risk. And if we were to ever, as an NBFC or as a bank, if we were to have gotten audited on this, I think the regulator would have put heavy penalties on us. Right? Let's talk of specific to HR. In HR, when you're looking at access to employee data, who is monitoring it on a regular periodicity to see that people who've moved between different roles, do they continue to have the right access to information? When you're sharing data outside the HR function, how is it being shared? For example, salary and salary, performance rating, disciplinary action related data, are they being circulated in password shared files? Are passwords and the email attachment going out in one single mail? Because those all lead to your data security risk. I'm not going to talk much on compliance risk because you'll find in the subsequent slides that compliance risk is one of the most effectively managed risks. I think it stems from the fact that HR as a function has evolved from personnel management to now being human capital. So these kind of things, and there's a lot of impact of the statutory bodies to ensure that we are more and more diligent on our compliance risk. But this could mean everything. And let me share with you though an example of what happened in the past with us. I'm sure you all remember that or know that PF is to be linked with Aadhaar, right? And that there was a point of time when Aadhaars were created with a lot of background data not necessarily captured. So there was always a mismatch in the employee records with Aadhaar authentication. And at one point of time, the HR team decided to stop creating employee IDs for all those cases where Aadhaar authentication did not happen. Okay. Now, anybody can answer what could be the risk of not creating employee IDs for people who join. Any ideas? Put your response on the chat screen. What is the risk of time to hire? Yes. Okay, but you've hired the person and you've not created, PF will not be submitted. Let's say you've created, business gets impacted. You've created the employee ID, but you've not paid salary because you can't deposit PF. It is definitely an audit issue. Is there anything else? Think of the 5 compliance risks. Yes. Can you also think of the other 5 that I spoke of earlier? Reputational risk, absolutely. What else? You could also get into a legal risk, right? I mean, the employee could be, the first thing that an employee will do when he doesn't get his or her salary is walk up to the labor officer, right? Now then the team decided to create the employee IDs by assigning those employees to a state where Aadhaar authentication was not required. Okay, so they started mapping these employees to a different state. What is the risk of that? Okay, CIBIL credit won't get impacted. If you map an employee in PF records in a different state, somebody who is local labor law issues, absolutely. I mean, you're trying to game the system here, right? You're trying to look at shortcuts by addressing one risk. So what I'm really trying to say here is that while you identify risks, don't think of it as short term. You're solving for the problem for today, but you've also got to look at perspectives of how do you solve for problem for tomorrow. Any action that you take today, and you know, as my CEO used to say this well, saying, follow the fishbone model. If you start with whys and hows and keep going down till you get the starting point. And I would say, even when you got to the starting point, ask yourself once more, is there a starting point to this starting point? Okay, so don't think of solving problems for the immediate issue. Think of how does that solution also have other impacts? Okay, let's go to the subsequent slide. We've covered this. This is the research finding that I spoke of. So WTW partnered with CII, SI, and CEL. They spoke to more than 100 CEOs, CHROs, CFOs, and chief risk officers. And this is what that study said, that in terms of the drivers of HR risk management, the topmost, of course, is the ability to attract and retain talent. And they're not talking of all talent, they're talking of critical talent. And in terms of the least was the regulatory compliances. When they identified to say, what are the kind of risks, here are some. And I'm not going through all because I said I'll leave you with the study. But briefly, if you look at it, they're talking of talent, they're talking of retention, they're talking of compensation, they're talking of engaging workforce, and of course, in the last is the compliances and the industrial relations. Okay, let's look at some of the most important part in terms of how do you build these strategies. Okay, the first and the foremost is for you to look at your policies and procedures. Somebody asked this question, can a policy help mitigate the risk? It can, if you are ensuring that you are building policies that are comprehensive. So the best format of a policy is to have a section which talks of risks identified, controls and measures implemented, and finally, talk about review mechanism. Okay, all your policy documents should definitely have these three sections. And along with that, put a delegation matrix as to who reviews the control check process. Okay, how often are these policies getting reviewed? And I must tell you that in the entire HR process, if you look at all of the transactions that we perform, review of policies and procedures comes the last. Those will always get delayed. People will say, "Acha, we are checking it. We didn't get the time." And more than often, you'll find the review date has passed and you're still working on an old policy. And the reality of life is that the policy document or the process documents talks of something which was defined many years back. And what is happening on ground is completely different. Or you might also find that on ground in one geography, there's something being followed. And in some other geography, something else is being followed. And that really happens because somebody is making a policy, but not everybody else is able to understand it. Because the way the policy has been made, the person who's writing the policy has made it, in the attempt to make it so comprehensive, has made it far more complicated. So the content of your policy needs to be written in a language that people are able to understand. And if the policies are cumbersome, if the policies are exhaustive, then there has to be a method and a mechanism where you're continuously training the policy. Now, let me give you an example of the policy being clear and explanatory. Let's take there was a question on background checks, right? What you have a background checks process which says that you can ratify a discrepancy in experience, and the authority to ratify that discrepancy rests with, let's say, somebody at a regional level. Okay? What is the issue with this statement? Let's see some responses on the chat. Ratification of experience can be done. Okay, Praveen, maybe I'll come back to that question later. I'll want to understand what you mean by RACI. But if people can respond back, ratification of background experience discrepancy can be done by regional manager. What is an error in the statement? Or not necessarily error, what is the risk in the statement? Credibility of the approver? No, you are authorizing the person. You're saying, okay, somebody at a regional level has the credibility uh, to approve a discrepancy in experience. Let me give you a hint. There's a discrepancy of 3 months. There's a discrepancy of 12 months. And obviously the process says approve the discrepancy. Do you now identify the risk? Okay. They will choose easy method of doing BGB. They make no binary issues. Passing on authority. Okay, any more hints? Okay, no more hints. Let's take this example. So the policy allows the regional manager to ratify a discrepancy in experience and doesn't say anything else. Now, a discrepancy can be 1 day, 2 days, 3 months, 6 months. If you don't specify the limit of the discrepancy that is permitted, right? Then there will be one manager who will say, no, 1 day discrepancy also, I am not okay. And there'll be another manager who will say, 12 months, hai na, approval mein aata hai, kar do. What happens is that you end up having people in the system. You either lose out on somebody who has a genuine reason for the discrepancy, or you end up having people in the system who've now not provided you the right background information, right? So you've got to be very clear about the statement. So your policy should then therefore say that experience-related deviations are allowed as long as they fall within an acceptable limit. Now, what that acceptable limit is for you in your organizations to define, right? You might say that I don't want any discrepancy. That is also okay. Or you might say that for this particular role, I'm okay with a discrepancy of 15 days to 30 days, right? The limit is something that you define, but the policy should state who, or the process should state what is it that is permitted. Okay. I hope that helps. Let's look at the second one, which is the risk assessment and mitigation. You did respond back when you were looking at what is risk management. Are you going back and looking at your process and your policy? And by the way, every policy must have a process. Okay? It should ideally be 2 different documents, but in some cases, smaller events may have 1 document. But your policy talks about what it is, who does it apply to, what is the approval process, and a procedure will tell you how to implement it, right? Now, these documents or all the transactions that you conduct as part of the HR function should regularly get assessed. You should be able to say, okay, based on the current environment, are these really valid or not? Okay? And if you've identified some risks, have you gone ahead and put a control in it? The best way to mitigate risk is to automate the process. Because the minute you've automated it, you've taken away the risk. Anything which is manual will be bound to have a failure and therefore the loss of controls in your process. For example, let's say that and these ones are very simple, you would have definitely got it. What is the percentage of increase that you can give to a new joint? Your HRMS should have that defined. And it should say anything up to this percentage is approved here. Anything over that should automatically flow to the next level of approval. Now, these ones, I'm sure most of you would have developed. If your process somewhere says for a manager, the mail approval has to be attached and that will be considered as an approval in the system, then that's a problem. Because you're still relying on a manual process to get an approval and not automating the transaction. Okay. Look at your training and development programs. Like I said, if development is a risk, then are you looking at investing in your leadership team? Are you building a succession plan? Are you looking at devising your program such that they are up to date? many times, the training department is designing the product manual, but they don't know the product themselves. Okay. A lot of times I've seen induction program that has org charts which are dated because nobody has gone back to even make modifications to the organization chart or the induction program did. So, so just as you review your policies, just as you review your processes, you also need to go back and continuously look at whether your training information that you're providing to people is updated and it brings in the essence of what the culture that you're trying to drive. Are you engaging with employees? We spoke about this. Is your communication process one way? Is it two way? Are there ways in which you're addressing these grievances? Are you communicating back to people to say, these are the kind of issues we received and how we have resolved them? On the legal and compliances, of course, stay up to date. Look at you have statutory audits that get done, but do you have your own internal audit processes? Is somebody reviewing it more frequently versus the annual audits so that you're not surprised at the end of the year? And of course, whatever that's coming in as change in the regulatory guidelines, are you going back and implementing it? We spoke about data security. Are files encrypted? Is the data published in password protection formats? Are the access rights being reviewed on a continuous basis? There's a regulatory change. The leave policy has been modified. Does your system have it corrected? Or, are you running a leave limit in practice different from what is being recorded in your system? So therefore, review your process, review your policy, review your systems also. And then continuously look at evaluating to say, are there gaps? Are there issues? Have we identified something? Is this control that we've built into the process still sufficient? For example, going back to the case of deviations of experience, are you finding that because we gave the authority, and somebody said credibility, right? Because we gave the authority to reach the level, people are giving in a lot of deviations, and we are finding a lot of people with experience deviations not clearing the background check process later, or we are finding issues that are getting reported in terms of the discrepancy of their experience. And therefore, we need to relook at this authority and maybe take it up to the next level. Okay, let's move to the tools. We're running fine on time. In terms of some of the tools that you could use, there are, of course, a lot of assessment surveys and questionnaires that are available. There are designs that are available. There are systematic tools that are available. If you do not have a process already in place, then please look at building some of these. When I moved in and I started to build my quarterly risk assessment questionnaire, it was just the HR generalist process had about 45 risks identified. The payroll compliances, comp and ben, had another 50. And when we looked at training and development, we added. So that was how exhaustive the risk assessment process became. And we were reviewing this on every quarter. Now, it is a cumbersome exercise, and having to do it manually becomes even far more difficult. And lucky for me, I was also leading HR systems. So each time I looked at my risk assessment survey, I tried to identify what about this can be automated. And the minute, like I said before, if you automate it, you can remove that risk completely from your system. All you need to ensure is that you're auditing your technology at a periodic basis. There was a question on whether the risks can be measured. You can define risk matrix. For example, when a lot of people said attrition is a risk. Now, attrition at certain levels may not necessarily be a risk. If you're having a certain percentage of attrition, it might be okay, right? You've got to be able to identify. For example, frontline attrition in in let's say retail, for example, you will always have that churn, but you also have a large market from where you can hire. So if your availability of resources is really high, then the high attrition may not necessarily be so much as a problem. What you can do is to minimize the effort that it takes to staff, right? So build your processes such that you have maybe hire on the basis of an assessment, hire on the basis of a questionnaire, where you spend less time in interviewing the candidate. Look at, goals. Do you necessarily need to interview everybody? Or can you also hire based on on tools that are available now? There are a lot of AI tools where you can actually conduct the interview process also through an online video recorder, right? And you decide to say, okay, for this role, I am okay with a percentage of attrition. Look at what your competitors are doing. Benchmark it with your competition. Your Aons or Deloitte's do attrition benchmarking. They provide you with that information. So attrition is not necessarily always a problem. You have to be able to look at which is your key roles. Those key roles and having high attrition in those key roles is an issue. Staffing gaps is not always a problem. Define with your business teams what is an acceptable threshold of staffing, and then look at measuring these on a monthly, quarterly, biannual or annual basis. But you should have a risk indicator for all your processes. You do other things. You do a root cause analysis, compliance audit, SWOT analysis, or you could follow any of these. You do the fishbone analysis, like I spoke of. Scenario building is something which is very important, which is something related to your business continuity plan and disaster recovery. I think that also came up as a question. What you're doing really here is looking at what could be the sum of the issues that could hit your business or could hit the transactions that you perform in a day-to-day operation. And you try and do that activity in that disaster recovery mode. So what we used to do, for example, our BCP document talked of various things. It talked of a network outage. It talked of a fire in the building. It talked of earthquakes or other natural calamities. It talked of, it never talked of COVID. And now if you see, after COVID, everybody's BCP documents have gotten strengthened further. Otherwise, again, like your policies, BCP, DR, and documents were the ones which were given the least attention and not reviewed at all. Right? But having said that, whatever scenario planning and scenario testing we do, when it comes to the real situation, a lot of times we tend to fall. And at that point of time, like, for example, we had a fire in one of our office. And thankfully, there was no damage, there was no loss. But when we completed the fire, when we came back to work, we realized that there were so many things that we put as part of our BCP plan or DR plan that were not implemented. The fire alarm didn't go. The announcement didn't get made. People didn't know where they had to go and get together. And what happens when you do all these fire drills? People take the break and they go for coffee. So then effectively making sure that there are people, you have a fire warden, you have people informed about the whole drill. People take this entire process seriously becomes extremely critical when you're really hit with a real life situation. I've spoken of technology solutions. So there are many available. These tools are available for you to not just do your risk assessment, but also to audit and monitor your controls, and they can throw you up a lot of reports and a lot of analysis to say what processes are really failing. Okay, this is again going back to the WTW survey, and it speaks of what is some of the challenges that people spoke of then. A lot of it still applies. The percentages might have changed now, but the fact is that there is limited understanding of HR risks with senior leaders, with people who are running the process. Auditors, to a large extent, also don't understand the HR function. You have very few audit companies which have auditors who come from core HR background, and therefore they know what they need to be checking for of auditing as part of the process. Somebody spoke of, what is the skills required for somebody to be an HR risk management specialist. We don't have people, and you will find that somebody who does not come from an HR background and gets into risk management might have a little difficulty understanding the process. So HR people who have a great eye for detail, have immense amount of patience, are good with looking at, working with a lot of data and information, who have the courage to be able to step up and stand up and say that there is a problem. Because let me tell you, the minute you become an HR risk management professional, you're not going to be liked by a lot of people. Because you're going to be correcting processes, you're going to be telling people mistakes. So you won't be liked. But having the courage to consistently go on that direction and talk about it, train people as you progress ahead, and have a forward looking approach. You, like I said before, you can't solve for the problem today. You have to be able to look at the problem to say, how is it going to impact you in the future? You need to have a forward looking approach to be able to make effective risk management strategies. And of course, there is a lot of gap between the ability for dialogue between HR function and the functions which really manage this. And it stems from the fact that there is limited understanding of the HR processes. And there are organizations who have a challenge with budgets. Okay, so I think we are now at K point peak K2. We have moved ahead from base camp. Let's quickly look at what is it that we've gathered so far. So if you go back to menti.com, and there are multiple choice questions for you. Please select from these set of options, which are some of the risk management strategies that we spoke of. Assessment and mitigation. Fantastic. Okay, only one person has responded. Okay. Okay, we have 6 people who've responded. Maybe the other ones will like to respond to this question now. So, can I move to the other question? Yeah. What are the risks identified in HR? Let's look at this question. Okay. Okay, good. So it's attrition risk, not necessarily just the employee risk, but that's also a right answer. Fantastic. So let's move ahead. Let's now move to the practice session. And we are at 12:40 almost. I'm going to stop sharing screen for a moment. If we can open up the breakout rooms now, we are about 50 people. So if we can open up the breakout room, if somebody can help me with that, if we open up the breakout room, what we're going to do is on the chat box, we are going to put some case studies for you. Okay, we're going to add a file here. There are 6 scenarios that we are placing for you, and we'll break you out into 6 rooms. Each of you will review the scenario, and you will respond back with 2 questions. What are the risks in that scenario? And what are some of the risk mitigation strategies? If you remember, I said you have to be able to write responses very crisp. So when you come back, we need 2 lines on background, 1 Yes, sorry. So you have 2 lines on the background of the case, 1 line with risk identified and 1 line on mitigation. We can break them out into the room now. Please open the case for the room that you have been assigned.
Could you also join one of the meeting room?
Yeah, it's okay. I'm just going through the chats to see when these will come up. It's going okay, Veer?
People are not very much, in discussion. I think we should, identify the leader first, and they should take them to the discussion, no?
Okay. We set it for 8 minutes, right?
Yes, yes.
How do you usually go overboard on time, or do we stick to the 1 o'clock?
Or maybe 5-10 minutes is okay. So I think you can also, get into the groups and ask them that, what they are doing.
I can
You
join. I've been
you can
assigned
join.
one group, so
Yeah, any
I
any
can join.
any group you can join. I think you are already co-host, no?
No.
No, I'm just making it. Just a second. Yes. Now you can join any of the group. Hi, Champa, you are unable to join the group?
Veer, I've given the details. I'm done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Had a technical error. I think everybody's coming back now.
I believe the breakout rooms have closed, so we should have the
Yeah.
participants back here any
I see
moment.
27 back here, 28.
Yeah.
Anybody from group 1 here? Okay, yeah, I saw you. Great. So, quick thoughts.
So that case study one was essentially about a company ending up in a possible legal compliance situation. And the legal compliances, the local compliances, and cultural sensitivity was not taken into account. And the company operations had started. So there were two
Right.
questions. The first one was, what are the potential risks that the company and the individual and the CEO, perhaps Vishal, could have avoided, and what are the potential risks essentially? So two potential risks. Usually, if the culture, if the legal compliances and cultural sensitivity is not taken into account, well, for legal compliances, if any of the employees reported to the authorities, there could be fines imposed on the director of the organization. They could also land behind bars, or in worst case scenario, the company operations may be halted. So this
So
is the
it's legal
potential
and
risk.
reputational risk.
Reputational, of course, the reputational, of course. So culturally, yes, it could leads to a lot of discontentment and a feeling of not being valued and respected for the local residents of that country. And the second one was, how could it have been avoided? Well, when the company planned to start hiring and start the operations, they should have given enough weightage, and they should have taken action to ensure that the compliances are also being set up. They should have been fully aware of the legal compliances and local laws before starting operations. That should have
Yes.
been
Yes.
done already in the due diligence. I think there's a network glitch at her end.
No, I think it's
We can
okay.
request break group 2 to discuss.
So, group two, may I please request the group two participants to, anybody, maybe whosoever is leading the conversation in group two, to please come forward and share the insights, share the conclusion.
Yes. Hi, Divya, I'm Saeed, and
I say.
we were part of the group two. So basically, this was about a case where a multinational organization was dealing with challenge of diversity, understanding of the requirements from the diversity, and understanding the labor laws among different geographies. So the major challenges mentioned in the case were related to uh, governing employee rights and fair treatment. And the other was in one of the branches, the employee had raised concerns about unequal opportunities and cultural insensitivity. So the question was, what were the potential consequences for the HR director on not addressing diversity and legal compliance issues? So what we thought about the risks involved were legal cases on discrimination or harassment. If those are not addressed, employees will be forced to go to the legal route. And the other might be limited attraction of talent due to impact on the branding. So these are the two consequences that the team felt. And how should the HR director mitigate the risk of legal non-compliance and discrimination is by creating policies and clarifying it related to equal employment opportunities that are there in the organization.
Thank you, Sain. Thank you so much. Anybody who would like to contribute their thoughts or the discussion, the conclusion from
I'll
group
just
three?
add to it. Yeah, part
Yeah,
of
sure,
the
sure.
group only. My name is Ravi Jot Singh. In addition to this, because it's a daunting situation for the global director also, it's important for him to have those communication with the teams to overcome those concerns raised by employees. So that's one part, that one is what is going at the back, but other part is how the communication to the mass is going on, that these are the various amendments and various changes we are bringing in the organization to address the concern.
Thank you, Ravijay. Thank you so much for your thoughts here, sharing your thoughts here. Anybody from group three would like to share the conclusion, the discussion that happened in the breakout room? Can I please request somebody from group three?
Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are. Hi. Hi.
So, hi, this is Banu. So, in the case study, the scenario is basically of a technology company that is kind of grappling into the data security arena, plus also on the technology front that it has been using the outdated things. So the chief security officer there has been grappling between how to protect the data how to protect the data, and also the reason being here so is in terms of the sensitive data being leaked to the masses. So the problem here identified, as the question says, is the consequences of the data breach. So probably the data which would have or should have been so secure is not able to kind of be secured in a proper way. That's because just the reason that there was no proximity between the technology and the security partners there, and HR being the driver of the whole thing. So the problem being is that the kind of overall gelling between the three departments was lacking. Hence, the timely decisions in terms of upgrading the server and the security platforms was not done. And at the end of the day, it was interested on just part solely the chief security officer. But somehow, I still believe that the chief security officer has not much role to play in here, because data security ideally is the part and parcel of the technology part. So that is what is my submission here.
Thank you, Bhanu. For a brief update, ma'am, we have had a discussion of, the summary of the discussions of 3 breakout rooms, 1, 2, and 3, and we could proceed further with breakout room number 4.
I want to add one thing from group room 3. So the data loss, the consequence will be there. The most important part will be there, the loss of IP. If the data is going outside with anybody as hacking the data, the loss of IP will be there. For that, the chief security officer and HR have to collaborate with the team, and they have to induct a training program, the awareness program for the employee, to aware about what type of threat can be happen and how we can going to create a new framework, how they are going to help us with the data breach. And another thing is that regular audit should be there for the data security.
Absolutely. Data security is everybody's responsibility. Great. Let's go to 4 then quickly. Regarding we had time also. So quickly, the 2-1-1 principle, please. 2 on background, 1 risk, and 1 mitigation. The statements. Two statements, 1 statement, 1 statement. Group 4, please. Okay, so if we don't have any, let's go to group 5.
I think your voice is breaking, Miss William. So can you repeat once again? And I think if you have the bandwidth issue, you can,
I
switch
said-
off your video. Yeah.
So see, there's as much as mitigation with the separate pod and a separate data connection, still I ended up having a issue. Let's go.
Ma'am, you can switch off your video. Maybe that will work.
Let next group respond back.
So you want to say something, Kalpesh, here about your group? Okay, so I forget my group name, but accidentally I have picked up the case study one. I don't know which one I have to pick up and in my group. So we have the issues like wherein we have the compliance breach, we have the different countries, cultural and engagement communication breach, and there is the another breach which we found, that is the diversity and inclusion. So we will have to address two questions, where one, how we can measure those risk, and what are the the solutions for that. Second one is the question is that what are the quick actions for the compliance, the impact, and how we can do the course corrections for that. We agreed and discussed on this part. One is that we need to bring the very good communications from top down, bottom, and bottom down, top, two way. Second, we should have the engagement and the assessment survey, so that we can identify whether there is a discrimination is between the different on the part of inclusion and the diversity, and basis on that we need to formulate the training interventions, and we have to frame up the policies on the fair equal treatment of the employees. Second one part is that we need to address the policy first, and then the, as and rightly mentioned, that we should have the procedures and the assessment of those procedures, not only to address these short term reasons, but we should have the long term vision to address these concerns. Third one is that to avoid the brand reputation and the compliance issues and the legal implications, so we have to do the course corrections, and we need to identify since when this compliance breach has started, and we need to quickly start working on those, so that we can do the course correction for the from the date when this compliance breach has started, and then some of the procedures to ensure that we are compiling with the compliance procedures. Third part is the communication. So we need to address the multiple communication channels and the teams and the training interventions, so that employee can share their feedback inputs and other areas, and these confidential surveys, and we can understand and know if those the impartialities or are and the unfair treatment are still going on. uh, so and we can address them by picking the confidential surveys. So this is what from our side. So Divya, you wanted to take any another groups part? This is I think group fifth I have spoken.
I believe there were six groups, five groups only.
Yeah, so I'm part of fifth. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So
I guess
Dr.
we'll, yeah.
Nepal, you wanted to add here, or Ms. Tandon, you wanted to add here? Pooja, you wanted to add here? Then feel free to add here.
I think you have covered all the points what we have discussed, and you have well added to further also. So nothing much there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Pooja?
So until Miss William joins, probably I would like to take the opportunity to share a link here. So for whosoever is planning to go for recertification for HRCI, I'm sharing a link. So in order to be able to use the code, it is mandatory to give feedback, and I'm sharing the link to the feedback here. Link to feedback for HRCI recertification credits. People who are already certified from HRCI may please use the link to give their feedback so that they can use the code for recertification credits. It's imperative, it's mandatory to do that to be able to get the recertification credits. Once Ms. Williams is back, we would certainly want her to take up the remaining questions and take it forward from here. Please bear with us.
So,
But overall,
Divya,
yeah.
I think let's close this. Once the people fill this feedback, it's very good that we have asked some questions on the feedback form where we want people to inform us that what kind of topic they wanted to cover in future. So everybody should fill this form. That would be helpful for us to
Okay, sure.
to get. And then maybe we can close with the code that you can share on the screen, and we can close this because ma'am is unable to join the session because of the
Oh,
network
okay.
issue. Yes.
All right. Let me just share the code. Give me a minute, please. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of a little not sure where the code is. If you could just help, please. Just a minute.
Sorry, I'm back now. There's a technical glitch here. But yes, I understand we're closing the session.
Yes, ma'am. You can give the closing comments for the participants. Participants are filling the feedback form. So any closing comment from your side, and then
Yeah, of
Kashish
course.
will.
Sure. Well, I think this technical glitch that I faced is a classic example of how, as much as you plan and look at mitigating risk, things can fail. So yeah, all the very best to you guys. I hope I have been able to answer some of your questions around how do you not just identify but also look at continued methods of mitigating risk within the HR function. The important aspect around it is to know where to look for, what to look for. So things, your how, why, what, where, who, these will become your best friends, right? And every time you look at a question, when you look at a situation, you need to be able to ask yourself those questions. All the very best to you. I am available in case you ever have or need any support or have questions that you might want me to address. Thank you very much for being patient, especially through this last phase of when I was kicked out of the network here. Thank you. And thanks, Veer and Praveen, again for having me here.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. This was certainly a phenomenal session where we were able to understand all the risks involved in different sub-functions of HR. And of course, there is a risk involved, there's a high risk involved starting from talent acquisition till the exits, till the time the employee exits the organization. And with the technological interventions like AI and HRIS, automated systems and automation and compliances, there's so many points which could turn into a roadblock and lead to a lot of hassles and the organizational operations being interrupted. So thank you so much, and I'm sure people, if they have any questions, they'll be certainly more than happy to reach out to you. So we're lucky to have learned from your experience, and we're certainly honored to have you give us this knowledge during this masterclass. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Divya.
Thank you so much, everyone.
And yeah, special thanks to everyone who took out their time from a Saturday, from a weekend to attend this session. And let's keep continuing to grow this community and contribute. And let's have more speakers and guides and mentors from this community as we grow. Thank you so much. Special thanks to Veer and core HRIR community. Thank you so much.
Can I make a small request to ma'am? So, ma'am, can we have the PDF version of your slides so that we can share with all the participants?
Yes, of course. I'll share with you not just the PDF version. I think the case studies and also the study that I spoke about, the WDW study. I'll share these